All right. I get the honor of introducing you to Madeline Lockhart, founder and CEO of SKANZ app. How are you, Madeline?
I'm doing good this morning. How are you, Justin?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Now, Madeline, we got to know what the shoes are because Madeline has a shoe game that I've never seen before. So what what'd you pick today?
Yeah, today I've got the flip flops with the sparkles on them. Not sure if
Sparkles. Okay. I
that
don't
looks
know that I've seen you in unsparkly shoes so far, so this is good.
that's the goal. That's the conversation starter. Yep.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, Madeline, you are a master connector and you've actually built technology around your ability to connect, which I love. Before we get there, though, I want to know the journey of how you even got into being a tech CEO because your background is very unique, your journey and your path towards running your own tech company. So give us the story.
Yeah, so I grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico. It's the birthplace of the atomic bomb. And so from a very young age, I was around a lot of just very, very smart people. And at the time, I didn't fully understand how unique of a position that was. And in high school, I ended up doing an internship, got into kind of the nuclear engineering space, ended up doing my undergrad in physics at Texas Tech, Reckham, and then decided that I had a career potentially in nuclear engineering. And so I ended up coming to NC State for graduate school. I just finished my second year. So we're about halfway there.
Wow.
Um,
In nuclear engineering.
Nuclear engineering,
Yes.
specifically
Yes.
nonproliferation and safeguards. So a lot of big buzzwords.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I love it. Lots of brain power.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so then from there, how do you get from nuclear engineering to running your own tech company?
Yeah, so just throughout kind of the last several years, going to different conferences, just being really engaged in different organizations, I just wanted to get connected with people. I spent a semester in DC working for the Department of State, and while I was there, I had this golden opportunity to get connected and network with some of the coolest people in the country, right? The
Mm,
smartest, the most driven. And looking back on that time, I really don't have a lot to show for it because I didn't know how to effectively make those connections. I mean, I
mm,
had a business card at the time that was actually very inaccurate. So I don't know how useful that was, but I just realized I've been in so many situations where I've had so much potential that has just been lost, right? You go to these conferences, you talk to people, and you just get so engaged and excited and inspired, and then you leave, and it's like sand like pouring through your fingers. So how
mm.
do you really grasp that, those connections, those people, that knowledge, and then act upon it?
Wow. That's so good. And I love, to me, entrepreneurship exists to solve problems in the world. So I love that you had this problem that you were identifying for yourself, and then you decided to go and do something about it. I want to give a couple shout outs. We got Nancy Sampson. What's up? Christine joining us all the way from New York City. And Carl from Big C Waffles just raised a fundraising round. Congratulations, man. I see you out there.
Awesome. Yeah.
Raised a community fundraising round. I see you out there making moves, running that franchise. Such beautiful work. All right. So you took this problem that you had, and what was the path towards making it into an actual company? Because I'm assuming you did something to start solving it. What was the kind of the first iteration of this idea?
Yeah, so the OG scans was actually a temporary tattoo. I was at a dinner with
A
another
temporary tattoo.
yeah, a temporary
Yes.
tattoo. I should have worn one today. I even saw him yesterday. I had seen a YouTube video and thought it was the coolest thing. Someone had an actual tattoo. I said,
And
"How
it
can
was
I?"
of like a QR code.
Yes, of a QR code, of a QR code. Yeah,
Oh my God.
and I
Yeah.
thought that was the coolest thing ever. I went home that day. I ordered one online, a temporary one, of course. All the novelty, none of the commitment, and
Yes.
it worked. And so my next thought was, okay, now instead of using someone else's code, I want to be able to manage what links to that code, right? And even years before this, I had always been fascinated with how much information you could put in a QR code if you had the right tools,
Right.
right? And just that quick, easy transfer of information. And so I said, all right, I'm going to build my own platform to do that. And kind of went about it the opposite way. Didn't, the whole kind of startup path is generally, you identify your problem and you do customer discovery and kind of really see if your idea was validated. And I said, I've validated it myself, and I kind of ran with it. And as you said,
Right.
it was my problem, and so I solved it first. But as I talk to people, everyone has this problem too, in some form or another, right?
Right. No, I love that. And I think that actually is a very valid customer discovery path, because it makes the assumption that if I have this problem, someone else must. And so you started doing something. I remember even when we had started the coffee shop I was running a few years ago called Nolia, it was for parents, and it was literally like, no, I want to drink good coffee and I want my kid to be there. Like, surely
Mhm.
some other parent has this issue where they want to drink not shitty coffee and like have their toddler looked at like they're not a monster, you know. And so you start doing that, and then you start discovering like what actual other people need. And so tell me more about that evolution, you know, going from, okay, I'm solving my own problem, to developing something and figuring out how it actually matches with problems that customers have, and then also, you know, problems that someone can pay for, because that's a whole other deal. So what's that evolution been?
Yeah, so the temporary tattoo thing was really cool, but at the end of the day, it was a novelty, right? It was something interesting, it was something unique. QR codes themselves weren't new, right? They've been around for a couple decades, just really become popular in the last several years. And so we kind of moved to stickers, which
Mhm.
was kind of the more appealing version of the tattoo, right? And so, I have one of my
I still might argue that we might need to bring the tattoo back every once in a while.
I have like 75 sheets of tattoo paper. I can print like over 500 tattoos. So if
I'm
you
I'm
want
just
them, hit me
I'm
up.
just
I will get
saying.
you
I'm just
them.
saying. I like the stickers too, and but you know, but there might be some people like me who, you know, every once in a while want to just roll out to an event with a tatty, you know. So yeah,
I mean, you could even like put that on the back of
I'm
your
trying to
head.
say, or like right here, like a real good
Yeah.
thug tattoo. That's what I'm going after.
Yeah, so that was really cool and exciting. And we started building the platform around that. And then we're like, okay, this is really a digital business card, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there are other companies out there that do it, and they do it well. They are mainly product focused, so you've heard of some of them, like Popple Holler. They've got the little NFC cards. I
Yeah.
personally don't like those. I prefer the QR code. Just visual, the visual appeal. Just people see it and they know what to do. The tap
Right.
card is not so
Right.
um, so we were like, how do we differentiate ourselves from them? So all of these different platforms, and ours is great for making those one-on-one connections, right? You get my information, I get yours, awesome connection made.
Right.
But how do we really take it to the next level? So when you
Mm,
look at the like business networking, I when I go to a networking event, I want to know who else is in the room, not just the two people I talk to, right?
right.
And we all know those people that come to a business networking event. They're new and they're going around, like passing out the business cards, and I'm
Right.
Lucy. Hello, I'm Lucy. Like I'm an insurance, and you're like, what? Like too much. And so
Yes. Yes.
so it's really saying, putting all that information in one place where it's easy, it's accessible, there's context, but then really putting the focus on making those connections, right? And
Mm,
then you don't have the pressure of, oh, I need to meet every single person in this room. It's, hey, let's make those connections here, and then after I can still follow up and see who else was in the room and see if there was potential connections that I missed, and
mm.
then go and reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever and say, hey, I was also here. We didn't get a chance to connect, but I really think we should have. And
Yeah.
then it's not just another, spam on LinkedIn or whatever. Someone being like, hey, hello, how are you? Like, it's really saying, hey, I was there. We should have met. And just kind of, again, it's an icebreaker, right? It's something you have in
Yeah.
common.
I really love that, and that you said it really well in terms of what I feel it would do, which is take a lot of the pressure off of meeting everybody and making sure that you know, get it all on your phone, or you know, hand out a bunch of business cards, or have stacks full. I know I got stacks full of business, like stacks of business cards that I have never input into anything. People that I really should connect with. Like, these are really great people, but it's not easy for me to do. So I love that you did that. So you, for this tool, you would be able to attend an event, or like host an event, and have all of these people with their digital business cards in that event, and you could then go back later and follow up with that.
Yep. So the organization hosts the event. They'll
Yeah.
designate it as a SKANZ event, and they'll have a code, either a QR code or a like passphrase to check into that event. And then when you check in, yeah, you'll see a list of everyone else who's checked in, and then whatever information is on there, you're choosing to put on there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling people how you want to be connected with, right? If I put my LinkedIn on there, I'm saying, connect with me on LinkedIn, message me on LinkedIn. If I put my Instagram, you can put as much or as little as you want. I even have my scheduling link on there. So if y'all somehow get my SKANZ profile, you can schedule a meeting with me. And it's really saying, like, if you have the desire to get connected with me, you can, right?
Yeah.
And you can put the food in front of people, but you can't make them eat it, right? So again, this is a tool, and it's saying you're making as easy for you as it possibly can be, but you still have to take that initiative and take the next step.
I love that so much. So let's talk about practically connecting now, because I really do think you are a master connector, not just a networker, which is, I think, the next evolution, right? Because it's easy to go around and schmooze and network and try to connect. And everybody here, we're on LinkedIn. I'm sure you could look in your inbox right now on LinkedIn and find somebody who's like, oh, I'm so glad we're connected. Here's my product. Like, get out of here. Oh my gosh. Because really life is done through connections, not just networking. So how do you walk me through because how long have you been in this area now in North Carolina?
Since August of 2020. So coming up on 2 years almost.
Right. And that's 2 years in a pandemic, right? Yep. So August of 2020, we're smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. And yet you are extremely well connected and becoming more and more well connected in the Triangle area. For somebody who's maybe new to Durham, new to whatever area they're in, walk us through step by step how you got plugged into this community, even in a pandemic. Because that's coming up on 2 years. That's like 3 months in real world time. Pandemic 2 years is worth like 3 months in real world time, as far as I'm concerned, because you couldn't even get out. So how did you end up doing that in a new city? I think that's really practical for people who are looking to get more deeply rooted, or maybe you're in your city for a long time, but still haven't really, gotten deeply rooted in your city. So what did you do?
So I think it was July of 2021. So last year, I sat down and I said, okay, I have this awesome product, and now I need to get out and I need to start using it and need to start making people aware of it. And I literally Googled business networking events in Raleigh, and I came across a Rockstar Connect event. So if you aren't familiar with that organization, awesome. They have a bunch of different... Dominic Battistello's one. I know a couple others, and they host these events monthly, and they have a spot and they get people together on a regular basis. And I just showed up and, just started meeting people. I had met a woman there who kind of took me around and introduced me to other people, and that was it. And once you go to that first event, the other ones will come. Because you meet people there and they say, oh, I also attend this event. I also attend this. And it starts going. The second one I went to was actually a Raleigh founded event. If you guys aren't familiar, it's a local co-working space. And I'm actually in one of their spaces right now.
I love it.
I know it's awesome here. And I had seen an event posted online and it was open. So I registered for it and I showed up and met some of the people there. And they said, oh, hey, we have a weekly Thursday ladies meetup. So I started going every Thursday afternoon, and that was probably the highlight of my week, was just going for that hour. We would have coffee, we would have pastries, and just talking with other female entrepreneurs. And again, it's just once you start getting connected and meeting people, like the events will come, right? I have numerous events every single week, more than enough now that I get invited to, and it's just, you have to put yourself out there, right? The first step is showing up to that first event and using Google. I mean, the resources are out there, look on social media. All these different groups are posting stuff, they're on LinkedIn, for example, they're on Instagram. And so it's really just, if you say you can't find the events, it's because you're not looking for them. And so you gotta open your eyes and open your laptop or phone or whatever, and really just say, hey, be very intentional with it. Hey, I'm going to show up, I'm going to meet someone, and go from there, right?
Right. And that takes courage, right? Like you went into an event where you knew nobody at the event in a
Yeah.
city that you're just showing up in. So talk about like walking into that room for the first time and you had somebody who helped kind of take you around, but how did you start in that room, right? Like what did that actually look like practically? Because again, I think these are some of the small steps that we take for granted once we've connected further or once we've done more of that and developed more of that muscle. Like you're a connector now, like that's you're somebody that I look at as somebody who is very well connected. But to get there, like there's all these little steps. So what did you do walking into that room for the first time? I think that's a really practical, it's like your first day of kindergarten. Like what do you do?
Okay, so two things I would say. First, find the host of the event.
Mhm.
They love that you're there. They want you to be there, and they want you to feel welcome, right? So
Yes.
they wouldn't be hosting these events if they didn't, right? So find them and say, introduce yourself, get to know them, because then when they
Mhm.
have opportunities, right, then they know to reach out to you. So find them and then say, hey, this is what I do. This is who I want to meet, or I'm just here to meet people in general, and they'll point you in the right direction because there's probably people there they already know. So that would be the first step, just kind of a safer kind of person to approach than randomly approaching anyone. Second thing I would say is find someone with something that you want to compliment, like sparkly shoes.
Sparkly
And
shoes. That's why I got you figured
that's
out.
right. I do the nails, I do the shoes because it's a conversation starter.
Yes.
Because it breaks the ice. It says, oh my goodness, I love your sparkly shoes. And I say, thank you so much. I got them from this store. And it makes it a lot more, just straightforward, and find
Yeah.
someone, because think about it. If you're at a networking event, the people who are there to network, right? If you're
Mhm.
standing there and someone comes up and talks to you, you want them to talk to you,
Right.
right? Flip that, someone's standing there, they want someone to talk to them. And again, it's literally talking to that first person, and then you'll form a little group and talk, or you'll kind of start mingling around. And I know it is hard for a lot of people, and growing up I considered myself an introvert, believe it or not. And so really it's just you have to put yourself out there, you have to be uncomfortable to grow, and just do it, start the
I love that.
conversation.
So now, okay, so now you're at this event, you meet these people. Tell me, how do you transition from networking to connecting, right? Like, how do you really level that up where you leave an event having made genuine connections with people, not just like the schmoozy hand out my business card type of vibe, but like you leave with a few relationships that you feel like you could invest in further. What's the difference there? Because I feel like you're really good at it.
Yeah. So it's definitely a learned skill. I definitely at first was like, I want to connect with everyone and I build all these relationships, and not everyone is meant for you to go deeper with them, right?
Yeah,
And
yes,
so if you're in a room with 30 people, there really may only be two or even one, honestly, even
right,
if you get one
right,
really solid potential future connection, right?
yeah,
And so again, it's having the ability to access all the information there, but then really hone it down and say, all right, this is really where I'm going to focus my energy. And
mm,
you get good, and you develop that kind of radar of kind of judging, okay, is this someone who I think has that potential, or someone who, I'll know and I'll run into, but that's as far as it goes. And
mm,
the next thing is really trying to act upon that connection or relationship after that event is over, right? And it's even reaching out and saying, hey, I was so happy to meet you at this event. I love talking about X, Y, and Z. I'm a huge coffee person. You love coffee as well, and
yes,
I'll take anyone to coffee anytime, any day. That
yes,
is something I will never say no to. And so it's putting yourself out there, saying, hey, let's go grab a coffee. And if you think about it, coffee is cheaper than drinks, right? So
yeah,
with
it really
coffee.
is.
But it's saying, I mean, it's kind of like professional dating, right? You're putting yourself out there, and you're saying, I think I can add value to your life, right? Whether
Mhm.
it's a business or just connections or whatever. And I think can also add value to mine. And it's not meant to be transactional in that sense,
Come
but
on.
but in a way of it's a
Yeah.
relationship, right? And relationships are two ways. And
Yes.
so it's really being willing, again, to make time in your schedule to have that coffee meeting, to make time to jump on Zoom for even 15 minutes sometimes. But you have to be careful, because if it's really someone you connect with, that 15 minutes will turn into an hour easy. And then your schedule's all messed up. And I've had, a lunch event turn into a 5-hour thing before. And
Uh-huh.
those are some of the best times, and you meet some of the best people. But it's just, you have to be willing to put in the time, and some people will be a waste of your time, to be honest.
Right. Sure. Sure.
And that's unavoidable, but you learn from it, and you kind of get better at gauging who's worth investing that time in, and who's maybe worth just kind of keeping around but not investing as much.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. And even on that, if you're approaching the relationship authentically and looking to really be, a value add person or whatever that is, I don't even know that any of those ever end up being wasted. One of my mentors would talk about no act of love is ever wasted, right? Even if it's not received by the other person or whatever, it never, goes anywhere. No act of love is ever wasted. And so I think the ability to genuinely connect and like, okay, it can fizzle out, but you approaching that relationship authentically still reverberates, I think, in life, and just puts out a whole bunch of good juju into the world. So no, I love how you're approaching that. And then the other piece about actually taking the time to take people out to coffee. I remember, so I've only been in Durham for 4 years, but it's been deep, deep 4 years for me. And when I first got here, like literally, I'd be on Instagram, finding people doing dope things, and be like, "Hey, can I buy you coffee and hear about what you're doing?" And literally, like no other agenda. I got nothing to like sell, prove, do this, that. I just want to know the dope people doing the dope things. And like, let me take you out to coffee. And my goal out of every meeting was like, "Hey, is there something I can do to help you move forward?" Like just literally like sowing seeds, like wherever I don't, the harvest I am worried about. Like, what can I do to help you move forward? What are you trying to do? Who can I connect you with? Even if I have a few connections, like that. And that approach for me, if you're concerned about the long game, right? Like if you're actually concerned about being deeply involved in your community or like leaving a legacy, or, for me, I think about my kids all the time. Like they get to benefit from the relationships that I build in my lifetime, so I'm thinking way beyond like, what do I get out of this? Because it's not a transaction. I love how you said that. It's a relationship. This is a human. It is not a transaction. And I wish more people, especially on LinkedIn in my inbox, I probably could pull up like 50 of these messages, stop treating me like a transaction and treat me like a human, and eventually there might be a transaction we could do.
Eventually, yep. For all
You
you
know?
insurance people out there, the transaction will come. You have to build
Totally.
that relationship, because I might not need, health insurance right now, but in 5 years when I started a new business or something, guess who I'm going to call? It's going to be you.
Right.
So again, it's not that immediate return, but long term, you're going to be so much better off.
Yes. So yeah, talk about that approach, like the deep relationship building that can lead to business down the road. But again, I think this is something you're very good at. Like you have these meetings, you take people out for coffee, but you're genuinely investing in these relationships and genuinely looking to add value. What are some of your tips there? Um, because it has worked out for you, and some of these relationships are now turning into business. Not that like that's the measure of a good relationship, but practically sitting here on LinkedIn with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, I think, you need to know this and be able to see this. So what's that been for you? What are some of the pieces to actual relationship building over time that you found have been consistent for you?
Yeah, so I mean, again, showing up to things and being very active and intentional and spending time with people. But the value in your network isn't just when you need something, right?
Mm-hmm.
People say, oh, I lost my job. I'm going to go on LinkedIn and, reach out to people. And you're reaching out to people who you haven't talked to in years, who you don't
Right.
have that relationship with. And, to be frank, they're not going to recommend you. And the chances of them having, the perfect job for you right in that moment are slim to none. And so
Mm.
that's a way to do it. It's not an effective way to do it. And I was just talking with some girlfriends of mine last night, and, you know, if you truly, are building those relationships in your community around you, you should have your next job before you leave your current job, because there's no desperation there. Like, you have your vision, you have your people around you who are
Yeah.
supporting the vision and who are, leading you in that path. And when I meet people, I'm not just thinking of what I can do for them, but kind of like what you said, but what my network can do for them, right? I know someone who just started kind of an Airbnb event space. And then the other day, I had a friend of mine who was trying to find a place to host her bridal shower. I'm thinking, there we go, right? And it's just,
Love it.
just making those connections for other people, and then it will come back to you. And I've heard other people say this before, it comes back 10 times, right? So
Yes.
when they're in conversations with other people who say, oh, I'm thinking about getting a digital business card, or I want to start hosting a networking event, they say, hey, have you talked to Madeline? Let me get you connected.
Yeah.
And the value of having those personal introductions and connections is, the referral network you build. Also, that's what it really is. It's referrals. It's building that relationship to a point where someone else feels comfortable bringing your name into a conversation, because
Yeah.
there's people I know who do things that I don't feel comfortable referring them, because there's not that trust and there's not that credibility
Mm.
there. And that's what you have to build, right? And so, say I have a personal trainer and I absolutely love them, and someone else says, hey, I'm in need of a personal trainer, boom, there you go. If I have one that I don't like so much, and someone asks for one, I'll say, hey,
Right.
I don't know, maybe you
Yeah.
should Google it, right? And so it's getting to that level where, I don't feel like I'm putting my reputation on the line by giving your name to someone else, because that's what it is. I don't want to give your name to someone your name to someone, and then you don't follow through on it, and that looks bad on me, right?
Right.
So it's really building those relationships again to a point where you're able to make those connections and trust that those are good connections.
Yeah, and that really highlights for me the idea that this does happen in community. Like, this is this village that happens, and how much, me referring someone to someone else reflects on me positively or negatively. Like, I love when I send somebody's way and they have a great experience, and I'm like, I tried to tell you,
Yeah,
they're the real deal, and then conversely, to be like, hey, I'm sorry you had that experience with so and so, and it does, it changes that. But looking at it, really from a relational community standpoint, I think is big. And it makes me think of, I follow Gary Vee on Instagram, great marketer and just brilliant, brilliant dude, straight up guy. He was talking about how he had this little clip this morning about, he's like, most people say they want to build a community, but what they really want is customers. And because building a community requires engagement, like actual engagement, like responding to people, building relationships with people over time. If you're just after customers, he's like, then it's transactional. It's one way, it's not really like, what can I do to build your life? What can I do to engage with you and actually build a relationship over time? And I think that's one of the things. It's really interesting because he's found ways to do that at scale, to like really build deep relationships at scale. Like, he's still personally massive, like CEO of some major media company. I don't know how many followers, still takes time, like schedules time in his day every day to respond personally, not his assistant, like responds to comments on like Twitter and Instagram and whatever. But his thing is like, no, that's the game long term, is that like, I want to build relationships. He said his measure of success is not how much money he makes, but how many people show up at his funeral, right? So he's like, that's how he's building, and I think that's a really interesting way to do that. So what would you say, like, how do you build actual community then around this? Because again, you've done it, you're doing it, you're actively building real community, people that you can pick up the phone and say, hey, they got this thing going on, or this is what I'm working on, because you've built that depth. So what does that look like for you?
yeah. So for me, as I kind of was just thinking about this, I want to be able to have kind of a Rolodex or network of someone for everything, right?
Yeah,
So if you come to me and you say, hey, I want to make a really dope video for a nonprofit, I
yeah,
can say, here are 3 people, boom, boom,
right,
boom, who can, I'll send you an email, introduce you, connect you on Instagram, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have a resource to give to anyone who needs it, right? And that resource mainly being people, right? There are non-people resources, but I don't know, really, are there non-people resources? Everyone's a resource. So it's really saying, like, I'll have a friend who might get in trouble with the law, and I'll say, you know what? Here's my list of lawyers, right?
I hope it's not me.
I mean, even like a speeding ticket, right? Sometimes like you gotta take that to court too, but it's really just always having someone for everything, and again, having the relationship with those people and the trust, where when you make that connection, it actually is fruitful and has success, and just really getting to the point where they're like, if you have a problem, if you need to find someone, talk to her, right? That's the goal, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of stuff, right? But
yeah, you're a freaking nuclear engineer.
Right, but still, there's so much I don't know, and my thought is, if I don't know it, I need to at least know someone who does know it, and be able to reach out to them. Even in school and on the nuclear engineering front, I'll be doing simulations and stuff, and I'll run into a problem, and I have 5 different people I can reach out to and say, hey, I was running this code, I got this error, have you seen it before? The problem's fixed in 10 minutes versus me spending hours. So it's again, just building that community of people that you can lean on, but can also lean on you. So making sure that you're available for other people as well, because that's the worst feeling, is when you're giving, and again, it's not transactional, but I guess people have like the whole water and cup analogy, where like your cup needs to be full before you can pour into other people's, right? But you also need to receive a lot of that support. And I've had moments in my life where I felt like I was giving a lot of support to everyone else and not receiving that or in any way. And so it's really balancing the two. And so building that community of people who are willing to support you just as much as you support them, and not expect anything for it, because some days it'll be 80-20, and some days it'll be 50-50, and it all balances out. So
I love that. Let's talk about that practically, because I think that's something we don't speak on enough as entrepreneurs, which is the second part of that, which is actually asking for help, receiving support. I know for a lot of the people in my community, that is much harder than giving support, especially like these are some big-hearted people. You're one of them, like big-hearted givers, want to make the world a better place, want to do something that's meaningful. The receiving of the support, the asking for the help can be hard. What's your experience been with that?
I'm definitely not the best at that. I'm getting better. But when I started this, I had a few people who were involved and did support me in some ways, but it's again really finding the good people, and not saying that they're bad people, but there are better people for you in your situation. And being, getting involved in kind of the different local entrepreneur communities, and again, going to events and meeting people, that's how you make those connections, and that's how you really identify people who have similar goals and ambitions and can come alongside you and meet you where you're at. Right. And again, as I kind of strive to become that, a connection for a lot of other people, there are other people I know who serve as that role currently for me.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, if I need to, make a video, I can reach out to, someone and say, hey, I need to make this video. Do you have anyone to recommend?
Right.
Right. I need to do UX. I need to do, whatever needs to be done. And I can find those people.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's good. I think it's so key as you build. The idea of a self-made person does not exist. No. Even the people that we think are self-made, if you really dig through their stories, actually Malcolm Gladwell did a whole book on this, that the idea of self-made just does not exist. And if you really examine it, there's extraordinary people and circumstances that rallied around these folks in order to help them achieve the great things that they've achieved. And so for me, I know that's one of the toughest things for me, is actually reaching out and asking for the help, and or asking for, being willing to just be that vulnerable and put it out there. But I'm learning, especially over the last couple of years, vulnerability is strength. Right? It's not, vulnerability is not some weakness. The ability to be vulnerable, healthily vulnerable, is such a strength, to be able to be like, hey, I don't know. Do you know? Like, I really don't know, or this is not my strong suit. Could you help me? Um, the effect that it's had for me is I'm now leaning more into my strengths because I'm like, like you don't want me, you don't want me to do that. Trust me. But I can do this really well. So let me play that role on the team. So yeah, I think that's super, super valuable. Now with SKANZ, you're building this company, right? You're now at the point where you've discovered like an actual like customer need that a customer can pay for, and all of these things you're aligning. You've built the tech behind it. What's next for your company? Because I'm excited to look back at this video in a year and look at where Madeline is, and seeing you on some magazines and some stuff as some tech rising tech star. So what do you see as the next steps, bringing this to the market even further?
Yeah, so I almost think of it as a puzzle right now, where I have a lot of the pieces and I kind of generally know where they go, and now it's a matter of putting them together.
Yeah.
And that's everything above. That's the tech, that's the people, that's the resources, and just
Mm.
figuring out how best to put it all together. Because I don't, it's kind of a puzzle in which there's no right answer. The
Right.
picture is unknown, right?
Right.
No picture.
Right. It's being developed. Right.
Exactly. And so it's now we kind of have all those pieces, and the development, and this, you've kind of seen this journey, it's been a challenge at times, and that's a whole process in itself. For anyone who's never developed a platform or an app, it's something else. so just be prepared for that. But it's a really beautiful journey, and the evolution of it has been incredible to watch, and at times very frustrating, but we're at the point now where the vision is there, and now it's really just putting those pieces in place and really figuring out how to do that in the best way. And again, coming back to connections and what people and what resources make most sense for where we're trying to be.
Yeah. Well, you highlight something that's really important that I don't feel like is talked about enough, which is that there's the puzzle of building the product, right? And like putting those pieces together, and on the tech front, development and doing all these things, going back and forth. There's that, but then there's also the puzzle of building a business, which is an entirely different thing, right? And I think a lot of times, I have a friend who's a great mechanic and like so skilled at being a mechanic. And I was like, hey, I'm going to go into business for myself. Like that's a logical thing. I'm going to take this, and I got a little bit of money. I want to go into business for myself, which awesome. But didn't realize it's a completely different skill set to be a mechanic business versus a mechanic. Like he was a craftsman at what he did, but had to go and then acquire the skills of how do you build a business? Like how do you do this art form? It's like learning a new instrument or something. Like you might be a musician, but like this is an entirely different thing, building a business and putting the pieces together. Like you said, the people, the product, aligning that to the market, like that's a picture that people need to develop, especially if they're a craftsperson or like they have this product or something like that. You got to learn how to build a business, which is an entirely different thing. So let's talk practically about that process for you of going from a product to actually now building a business and starting to put some of those pieces together. Some practical advice for people who are just now embarking on that business track that you could offer them.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to the comment you made earlier about no one's self-made, right? No one makes a business by themselves. No one does anything by themselves. And so, when I first started out back, I really kind of launched myself into the community probably last July. So I had kind of developed the product internally, had gotten a developer, kind of made this thing, and was like, all right, I'm ready to start putting myself out there.
Yeah.
So I joined a business club, City Club Raleigh, for any of you that aren't familiar, downtown Raleigh, and just was like, all right, I am going to join this and be intentional about showing up to events, about building those relationships, and just, again, being around people who have already built businesses, right? Who better to learn from? And mind you, there's definitely some very interesting generational differences, because there's people who have built, $1 million businesses, But, that was 30 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Technology's changed, the community's changed,
Right.
cultures are shifting. And so while they have years of experience, I also have a very new and fresh perspective. So there's definitely a very unique blending of the minds that happens when you put yourself again
Sure.
in those situations and have those conversations. And don't be afraid to, ask someone in a position of, quote unquote power to say, hey, I'm trying to do this, like, how can, do you have resources, or how can, I help you or you help me? It goes both ways again. The other thing goes back to finding resources. So, there's the SBA, there's the Small Business Technology Development Center. They literally have paid people on staff whose main goal is to help you build and grow your business. Right? Have free classes all the time. I remember my first class I went to, and they were talking about, okay, like, this is the process. You come up with your idea and you do the customer discovery, and they were going through this process. And the whole time I was thinking, I definitely did not do the process in the right order, right? I kind of built it before I validated it, but then I validated it because I already had built it. And so it was just
Right.
a little bit backwards, but again,
I'm going to pause you there, though, because I don't know that it's backwards. I think the best business practices, and you might have started from a different point, but the best businesses that I know are the ones that are iterative, right? Where they are constantly improving and getting feedback. So you started with you, but you quickly have validated and gotten feedback from other people who are not you, and gone back and tweaked. Like, you weren't afraid of putting it out there when it was, good enough.
That was hard. That was really
right. That's really vulnerable. And, shout out to Francis joining us on YouTube, saying vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Yeah. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is our greatest measure of courage. And that's a Brene Brown quote that Francis is hopping in on YouTube, right? So that's exactly it, right? You were putting it out there and iterating as you go. So I don't think you started from the wrong place. I think you started with the right heart, right, or the right approach, if you want to say it that way. All right, keep going.
Yeah. And it was interesting. I met one of the mentors in one of these programs, and he made the comment, and I was telling him, okay, I came up with this idea. I went out and, hired a development person. So it's not that I don't have the skill and expertise to do the development. It's that I don't have the time, right? Okay. I code enough for my PhD, so I'm not sure. And he made a comment, and he said, it's interesting. You're one of the first people I've talked to who said when they started off, one of their first steps was to kind of outsource and find other people to do things. Because I think, when people start businesses, they think they have to do everything.
Right.
And part of that, I know, definitely comes from a money perspective of saying, hey, I don't have the money to pay a bunch of people to do it. But again, there's so many resources out there. And to be honest, you have to be willing to pay for some things.
Yes.
Because time is also money, right? The time you spend to do something that could have been done by someone else in significantly less time, arguably better, it's worth paying for. And so it's kind of also having that mindset of, if you're really trying to build a business and a company, at the end of the day, you're not doing the day-to-day, you're not doing everything. And that's something I've been, looking at as well on, identifying what I do really well, and identifying what I can outsource to other people, and then how to best do that, right? So I'm not wasting thousands of dollars, so I'm not wasting tons of time. And that's a whole learning process in itself, right? And really navigating that.
That's massive. Well, and really, until your business doesn't need you, you have a job, not a business, right? You have an expensive, you got a good paying job, one with a lot of flexibility, but building a business should be one that is systematized and runs and has you, like, it benefits from you being there because you are bringing your best self to it. But that technically, if it's built right, it shouldn't need you to operate. You should add to it, but I think that's one measure of a really healthy business, is how long could it survive without you. And I think you're building it that way from the beginning, which I applaud you. I think you're doing an incredible job building this on the journey. So what's next now? Like, what goes, where does SKANZ go from here, so that we can check back in?
Yeah, so we just recently finished developing the organization side of it. So that's
Mhm.
where we really take it from that basic business card level to that next level of
Yeah.
connecting roomfuls of people and really making it the network of networks, right? And
Right.
so the next step is really I have built these relationships with a lot of different organizations and contacts in those, and kind of put feelers out there and saying, hey, your event is great, I love being here, I love being part of this community, let's take it to that next level,
Mhm.
right? Let's differentiate it from everyone else that's out there.
Yeah.
And so it's starting to build that community of organizations. And
Mhm.
then on the next level, it's really just I mean, building that community. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah.
Thinking back to when I first went to my first event, I found it on Eventbrite. Right,
Yeah.
Eventbrite is filled. Just it's amazing, and it's an awesome resource, but it's filled with everything.
Yeah.
Right, from yoga classes to concerts to like wine and dine and like everything. And so I really want SKANZ to be the place people can go to not only benefit from the events they go to, but find the events to go to. And
Yeah.
so what that looks like is as we onboard organizations and really get this thing going, they'll have the option to make their events public. And so
I love that.
we'll have a SKANZ listing of public events so people can say, hey, what business networking events are happening in the Triangle this week, and it's all in one place. Because that's one thing I
Mhm.
have noticed in going to these different events and communities and organizations is there are still some divisions, and you see the same people at some events and other events, and there's not a lot of cross pollination, and
Yeah.
I can be the cross pollinator, right? But
Right.
SKANZ can be the cross pollinator and
I
saying,
love
hey, there's
that.
these events going on here and these ones over here, and we're just putting them all in one place. And just again making it as easy for people as possible. We're literally giving it to them. We're putting it on a silver platter, and we're saying all you have to do is show up. You
Right.
show up, you get connected, and then
Totally.
put in the work, right? And it's there, and it's
Well, and I
waiting.
think the real power of what you're building is much deeper than just networking and contacts. We're talking about like social isolation. We're talking about the loneliness of the business journey and the entrepreneurial journey and helping each other find our people, which is of ultimate value, and one of the most valuable things in this lifetime. So I love it. And I'm excited to hear the testimonial. I'm saying it on here right now. I'm excited to hear the testimonial of somebody who gets married, right? Like somebody who just like they meet and they connect on SKANZ somehow. And then like
Hey, it
years
might be
later,
me. It might be
hey,
me.
look, you might find your boo thing on a SKANZ deal. I love it. That's when I know you're winning, right? It's when somebody goes and gets married because of a SKANZ connect. Madeline,
Or
you were
starts a
wonderful,
business, or
right?
starts
Or
a
starts a
business,
business,
or
right?
just
That's good. Yeah, all
so
those things.
you mentioned planting seeds earlier, and
Yes,
I had this conversation literally this last week of like SKANZ is literally planting those seeds. And
yeah,
it's organizing your garden, right? So you know
yes.
where you're planting the seeds, and then you got to water the seeds, and the water being
Mhm.
like coffee or alcohol, right?
Right, right.
And it's beautiful, and you see it
Yeah,
growing, and
this plant takes coffee, by the
you
way.
step back and you have this garden, right? And you're like,
Yeah,
this is what I've been working towards. This is why I'm out till 10 o'clock at night doing these things. This is
right.
why I you know put in the work. And now you step back and you see it, and it's beautiful. And you said
Mm,
the measure of success is how many people show up to your funeral, but I would say it's how many people just show up in general, right? You get married, how many people are at your wedding, right? It just
right.
just the level and depth of those relationships, and
Yeah,
just
and I think that to that point, the depth to me is what I would, because that's where I would differentiate from Gary Vee a bit, where I'm really concerned about the depth
yeah.
of the people that are at whatever my things are. I would rather be deeper than wide in my lifetime. So I think that's beautifully said. Beautifully said.
But I
Um,
think there's value in both, right? Because
yes,
you want to
yes,
be expanding your network, because you want to bring
yes.
in new people and new ideas, new experiences, new cultures, all of the above. But yeah, you do want to have that depth with kind of I actually thought about this. I was talking about someone with someone the other day about MLMs and like pyramid
Uh,
schemes. And I was like, networking and like building your people is kind of like a pyramid where slowly people work their way to the top, and those are the ones you have, you know, this really deep relationship with.
yeah,
And the people at the bottom are, it's not that they're not great connections, it's just that they're newer relationships and they just
right.
haven't took the time to nurture and develop. And they'll become less and less as you get closer and closer. Maybe it's an inverted pyramid.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I like it. We're working it.
Inverted pyramid, yeah.
Oh, I
And
like it.
so
This is brilliant. I'm so glad to have you here and for what you're doing to make the world a better place and how you're doing it. Thanks for your wisdom, sharing with the community here. How do we get in touch with you, Madeline? What's the best way for people to connect?
yeah, definitely on LinkedIn. You'll see me on there. I think my SKANZ page is linked somewhere on there. Instagram's a big one. I'm pretty active on there. I think those are probably the two. I'll give Justin. Yeah, just message me on LinkedIn or
Yeah, I just dropped your LinkedIn in the chat stream here so people can grab that. And to everyone here on LinkedIn who decided to join us, thank you for being here on this Tuesday or whenever you're tuning in to watch this on YouTube, on Facebook, all the people all over the place, because time, I think time is beyond money. It's everything. It's the only thing that we can never get back. And you've chosen to spend that here with us, and I cannot thank you enough. Keep changing the world, y'all. Madeline, thank you. Keep going. Keep making a difference. I'm so proud of the progress you're making, and keep going.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
All right.
Everyone get out and get connected.
There you go. Get connected. That's what it is. Oh, and make sure, what's the website? SKANZ.io.
Yeah, SKANZ.io.
All right. I'm going to drop that in the chat too. SKANZ.io. Wonderful. All right. Well, have a great week. Keep making a difference out there, y'all, and we will talk soon. Thanks, Madeline.